part of their work habits. Someone who's literate can't participate in that. But speech recognition, properly done, can actually bring those folks into the mainstream.
Generally, I can see why you might want it in some circumstances. I hate it personally. I hate those machines that talk to me from banks. And I'm wondering whether actually it's a fancy idea, which is too fancy for its own good, and actually we should limit its use a lot more. Is it technology which is starting to rule us a bit?
What we would say, and what I personally believe, and I think in general the industry would say, is if you're using speech as in and of itself, I think you're probably right. But if it's used in the concept of a not to sound cliche, but a multimodal experience, right? So you're using speech where speech is appropriate, you're using screens where screens are appropriate, touch screens when that's appropriate, and even keyboards when that's appropriate. If you're doing that in the right way, and you build the right user interface, it can be an advantage, not a hindrance.
Thank you very much. Right, tell me about the problem of counterfeit medicines in your part of the world, in Ghana, West Africa, and tell me what you're doing about it.
Okay, to do that, I think I should situate it in a much broader context.
Sure.
And one of the things I want to talk about in relation to that was about the digital divide and what doing mobile innovation in Africa has taught me about the digital divide. For a long time, we looked at it in quantitative terms. So, the access to bandwidth that a particular region or locality has is used as a function to measure the digital divide. In actual fact, there's a qualitative dimension to that, which, as I explained, working in mobiles in Africa opens your eye to. So when you take a country like Malawi, for instance, where sending 10 SMS a day, for people, a third of the population, that would be bankruptcy. Because the cost of 10 SMS a day, 10 text messages a day, is equivalent to your total daily income. So when you live in a society like that, your conception of connectivity is no longer quantitative, it's qualitative.
Sure. So
what we've seen is that the kind of services that are coming out of Africa, and you mentioned my own anti-counterfeiting project, is situated in that same context. So looking at the situation in the world where currently, when you look at brands and the way we communicate, and you look at what I call the Walmart world, in comparison with the Twitter world, where all the digital products that you can access are infinitely customizable. Whereas almost all the products you can get in the physical markets, in your Walmart grocery, are almost non-personalizable. The difference is that as the world changes, you start with critical products like medicines. We're not being able to tell simply from the outer coating or the outer packaging that this medicine is coming from the right source could kill you. So in my part of the world, for instance, a third of the medicines that you buy, 30%, could actually do grave damage to your system.
Because it's a counterfeit made by a paint manufacturer or some sort of rogue in some back garage.
Exactly.
Cool.
So it's a knockoff.
Yeah.
It looks like a real thing. And unlike biscuits, medicines are a type of product that very few of us have a relationship to. We don't know the smell, we don't really care very much. You put water in your mouth and then you throw it down as quickly as you can.
Sure.
So very few of us are able to detect. And don't forget that these people who are doing the counterfeiting are extremely sophisticated. And they have access to the same AutoCAD devices that the manufacturers have. But they are not bearing the marketing cost, they're not bearing the legal cost and the rest of it. So they can still sell cheaply to the market, even if they are not doing, when they are not doing it at the same level. But if they have 30% of the market, then clearly you have a challenge that is fundamental. And I situate that, as I explained earlier, in the way that in the digital markets, so you have your Twitter product, you have your Facebook product, you can customize it any way you want. But when it comes to the physical world, when it comes to the grocery world, the Walmart world, we still have to take the manufacturer's word for it. We have to take the brand maker's word for it. And that is going to change because 5,000 years of commercial history, what is now now?
But I want you to get a bit more basic, a bit more. Basically, the problem is that 30% of the medicines, in quotes, in your part of the world, are fake.
Yes.
They look the same, but they don't do the job. They're made of chalk or anything.
And they carry the brand.
Right. So how are you using text messaging to counter that?
Okay. So what we've done is that we've spoken to the manufacturers and we've started a piloting program where they put on unique codes, a completely random but unique code to the physical item.
Numbers. Sequences of numbers.
Sequence of numbers, or alphanumeric characters. But they are unique to the physical bottle or physical pack. So when you buy the medicine, you scratch it, Then you send it in a text message or USSD, depending on what service you're using. But it's a simple text message for free. So it goes to a database, the central registry, and then you get information about that product back to you. That indicates that this is the original medicine or the original product that you bought.
So I've got this bottle,
exactly.
I scrape off the number,
Yeah.
I text that number, and it comes back within 2 seconds and says it's a counterfeit or it's not.
Yes, it tells you that you just bought this particular, it tells you what brand you bought, what is the expiry date. Because one of the other challenges you have is people fact the expiry date. And then it tells you whether you've got a genuine thing or not.
Right. And you're trying it out?
We're trying it out in Ghana. Yes, and we've also now started relationships in Rwanda, Nigeria, India, 4 places, to roll this out.
I can imagine that the problem will be that the companies, the legit pharmaceutical companies, will say sticking numbers on boxes is going to cost us money.
That is, conceivably, that is the first thing that comes to mind. However, in actual fact, if you're losing 20% of the market to counterfeiters, that's a huge amount of money that's going down the drain. And if you implement this simple solution, one, you recoup that market. So the price of medicines will actually fall. But even more fundamentally than that, this is the first time in the history of the commercial world where somebody is standing right there at the pharmacy and is buying your product and is telling you I'm buying your product. So what are you going to send in the response? Only that is a genuine medicine or some message that is suited to the person standing right there at the pharmacy.
An advert.
An advert, maybe. But also, you know exactly where he or she is standing. So you know which part of the territory it's coming from. You know what time of the day. You know what combinations work. You know what messaging that you sent. What adverts that rolled out on the television the night before. Did it increase the sale of this particular brand or not? So the kind of information that you get as a manufacturer far supersedes the cost of implementing a very simple, basic intervention in your factory line. But then obviously, as I explained to you, maybe in the future people are actually going to customize their products. So I'm going to go online and I'll tell you what kind of shirt I need. And the ability for you to deliver that shirt to me, whatever manner, will determine whether your brand is at the cutting edge and not the fact that you put Rolex in the watch.
Thank you very much. Well, we've 14 seconds to go, so I thank you all very, very much indeed for being so interesting.